Applied to certified.
What is going on? Welcome to Applied to Certified. This is your number one resource for all things disadvantaged, minority-owned, women-owned business enterprise. All things dealing with certification. How do you get it? How do you leverage it? And what is this thing called supplier diversity? And how does your certification really plug into the annual goals that these organizations are setting? You know, we're talking about all things business on this platform. We're talking to business owners who have received their certification and leveraged it to build and scale their brands. And we're also going to talk to those folks inside these organizations and corporations who deal with supplier diversity on a day-to-day basis. And they're going to come on and talk about all the things that you need to know to engage with them, do business with them, and most importantly, win these contracts to build your brand. So if you're ready, I'm going to tell you right now, you better subscribe, like, and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it, because I don't want you to miss one single episode. I am your host, Sheena Thomas, founder and principal of Lingo Strategic Partners, and I am excited for what is ahead of you in today's episode. So let's get into it. Welcome back. I am so glad you are here with me today. I am excited about today's topic. Okay, but before we get into it, I am Sheena, your XBE expert or your XBE authority, and I'm excited for today's topic. We are talking about how you choose the right certification. And honestly, depending on who you talk to, some people would say that there isn't a right certification. Others would say that there is a right certification based on what your company does, how old your company is, who your client may be. And so depending on what school of thought you come from, that answer may vary for you. But ultimately, selecting the certification that's going to benefit your business presently and perhaps in the future is critical. So what we're going to delve into are 4 ways that, I have found help business owners identify, kind of navigate through the process of figuring out which certification they need to obtain, maybe initially, which certification they need to obtain maybe for the long term. Maybe there is only one, or maybe there's, a pathway of certification. So they're getting one now, and maybe they're working on others at a later date. All in all, these 4 tips that I'm going to share with you today really will help you regardless of what your path of certification may be or how many certifications you may need. Okay. So we're going to get into it. Please be sure to drop your questions, your comments. If you are watching this on YouTube at the Applied to Certified podcast channel, great. Go ahead and drop your comments down below. If you have any questions, drop them down below because I would love to answer those for you. If you happen to be listening to us, maybe on Spotify or iHeart, we are expanding, y'all. We are expanding. Jump on over to our YouTube channel if you have any questions or whatever, and let me know. So, all right, let's get into it. Okay. How do you choose the right certification? So I'm going to share with you guys, like I said, 4 ways that I think are most beneficial. Okay. So the first thing is going to be identifying your customer. All right. That is really key. Identifying your customer is important because your customers, be it corporations, governmental agencies, they may accept certain certifications from certain agencies. They may or may not have supplier diversity programs in place. Or they may just figure like, you know what, we're going to accept everyone. So you really need to identify who your customer is first. to determine whether or not they require you to be certified, because there are some that have requirements. They encourage you to be certified, whether or not they have a supplier diversity or minority business enterprise program, or if they accept multiple certifications. So let me give you a quick example, okay? For a corporation that I actually ran the supplier diversity program for, the majority of their annual spend was not with federal agencies. But because they had less than 1% spend with federal agencies, they were required to report their annual spend to the SBA, the GSA, which is your General Services Administration, and some other federal agencies. And so, because there was that requirement, they only looked at the SBA designation. So, if you were self certified, if you had 8A, HubZone, EDW, OSB certifications, those were the ones that they looked at. They did not have a separate minority women business enterprise program. They didn't have a separate small business program. That was it. Okay. So when it comes to the certifications or where the applicant firm or the vendor registered, they were looking for those vendors to be registered with SAM, the System for Award Management. All right. So having, let's say, a certification from one of the councils wouldn't necessarily fulfill the need for them, because they needed for you or for that vendor to be registered with SAM in order to count that spend. Now, if you look at another corporation example, let's say a corporation that is just building their supplier diversity program, or they don't have any spend or any contracts with the federal government, their programs are a little bit more autonomous, meaning they can, develop the programs based on what they want. So they may ask for certifications from anyone, not just the SBA or not just a council. So that may give you more opportunities as far as which certification to align yourself with. For example, if you look at some of the corporations, they say, well, we accept certifications from the NMSDC, from the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, WeBank, from the NGLCC, which is the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, Disability In, which does most of your certifications for individuals living with disabilities, even your service disabled veteran-owned small businesses may go through Disability In for their certifications. And so they have a larger net of certifications that they accept from multiple agencies. Then you have some that are on the public side. So your federal agencies, aside from the SBA, that fall under the Department of Transportation. And so when you are doing business with an agency that receives Department of Transportation funds, they're going to look for you to be certified as a DBE or an ACDBE. That's your disadvantaged business enterprise or your airport concessionaire disadvantaged business enterprise. And that is because for those projects, USDOT says, listen, you must have certified DBEs or ACDBEs on this project in order for that spend to count towards the participation goal. Okay. So in that case, having a council MBE certification is not going to do you any good with a federal agency under the Department of Transportation. So I hope that kind of makes sense when I say identify your customer. Now let's take it a step further. In identifying your customer, it's more than just identifying, what certification do you accept, if any? But in identifying your customer, you also have time to drill down and figure out whether or not they actually procure your service or your product. Because it may be that they don't buy what you're selling. And that happens. You may have a product that's so innovative or something that is not necessarily purchased by corporations or government agencies through an RFP or a bid process. So there may not be a current need for your service or product, which is another way for you to determine whether or not certification is right for you right now, and if so, which one to get. Okay. Additionally, some other things that you learn when you start identifying your customer and doing your research is how often they procure certain products or services. You also identify the buyers for those service or products, and then how to do business with them. Okay, there may be a different process. Maybe it's not necessarily you registering on a vendor portal with them and then sending them a quick capability statement. There may be a different path of access to those opportunities. So, identifying your customer is going to give you a lot of great information in addition to what, if any, certifications they do require or encourage applicants or vendors to have. All right. So that's the first tip, identify your customer. The next one is going to be following the money. Okay. Following the money is really key. As I just kind of alluded, there are different pockets of opportunities. You have corporate opportunities, you have federal opportunities, and you also have state funded opportunities. In some of the corporate opportunities, there may be federal opportunities if they're receiving federal funds or they're doing work for the federal government. So, following the money is going to tell you what type of certification you may need. Example, let's go back to our federal Department of Transportation agencies. Let's say if you're here in the DFW area with me, TxDOT is the Texas Department of Transportation. TxDOT has a lot of work going on with all of our highway systems, okay? Be it constructing new highway systems or the maintenance of the current infrastructure. And so for those projects, they receive federal funding from USDOT. Because they receive that federal funding, there is a requirement that they have certified DBEs or ACDBEs. And I'm sorry, in the case of TxDOT, it's really just going to be DBEs because they're not an airport concessionaire or an airport. So they're going to need those DBEs on that project in order to count those contracted dollars towards the participation goal. So by following the money and identifying the fact that this is a federally funded project through the USDOT, that tells you you now need to go get a DBE certification if that is your customer base, if that is who you're wanting to do business with. Okay. It's going to be very similar to the state. If there are state funded agencies, then a state certification is going to be what is required. So they're going to look for you, if you're here in the state of Texas, to have a state hub, historically underutilized business certification. Okay. So following the money is a great way to help lead you to the right certification, which goes back to that first question of, is there really a right certification for you? Should you have one? Should you have multiple? Well, as you can see that example, if you're doing business with federal DOT agencies as well as the state, then yes, you're going to need two certifications. Okay. Those certifications cannot be used interchangeably. And so it's the same thing for the corporations. The majority of your corporations are going to align themselves with your council agencies. So your National Minority Supplier Development Council, WeBank, the chambers that I've mentioned before, NABO, NAVOBA, those types of organizations that provide those certifications. And if you go up to the NMSDC's website, if you go to any of the regional minority supplier development councils, you will see who the corporate members are. And that tells you right there, okay, so these are corporate opportunities, and I know that they are a member of these councils. So I just need to go ahead and move forward with this type of certification through the council. Okay. The funding for most of your corporate opportunities is going to be private funding. So there's not going to be any state or federal or even local funding that is going to come through mandating that there is a certain type of certification that is received. In the instance, as I said before, that you happen to be doing business with a corporation who does work for federal agencies or state agencies, then there could be an opportunity for you to have both council certifications and a state certification. Okay. So following the money is key. Sheena, how do you follow the money? Okay. You follow the money by doing some research. All right. Most of your public agencies, they have databases of current procurements, current bids that have been awarded, bids that are coming up, So if you look through some of the bid specs and things of that sort, if you are doing business with the cities, you can see how projects are funded, especially if you're working on projects with developers. You can see how the project is funded, where the money came from, the sources of the money, how much money from each source was given to fund this overall project. And that will help you identify as well what type of certification may be beneficial for you in that particular instance. All right. Okay, we're skirting through these, y'all, because really I find that if you can knock these 4 things out and use these as a template, identifying the right certification for you is going to be a cakewalk. It really is. It's just a matter of knowing what you need to look for. So the next thing is a needs assessment. All right. So now we're going internal. And so with a needs assessment, what we're looking at is your business and whether or not certification makes sense for your business right now. And I say that because when I started my company, I was not certified with anyone because my clients didn't require for me to be certified. I'm helping other businesses obtain their certification. So for them, it wasn't necessary. Now, as my company started getting into the supplier diversity program space, then certification became a bit more important. I was actually asked to partner on a solicitation, a bid with a colleague of mine, and I wasn't certified as a minority woman-owned business, and so I went ahead at that point and submitted my application for certification. Now, a very good point to hit here is I did this well in advance of needing my certification in order for her to put me into this package and get it submitted. If you are unsure of whether or not you will even leverage certification, it may behoove you to go ahead and get it done. Because if you wait until an opportunity presents itself, if you wait until that RFP hits the street, if you wait until that bid is let, you will not have that certification in time to participate. And that could harm you from getting that work, especially if the certification is required at the time of the bid, or if there are participation points or evaluation points allocated during that evaluation, that bid evaluation period, based on you having a certification in place. Okay. 15 points can make a difference in someone winning and losing a bid. 5 points can. 1 point can. So keep that in mind. That's like a little segue. If you are not sure that you're going to leverage certification, but you're doing business with corporations, you're doing business with state agencies, you're doing business with federal agencies, go ahead and start the process now, because you were able to get in without needing that certification. That's great. But the next opportunity that comes along may have a requirement for certification. And so you want to have that in place so that you can go ahead and move through the process of bidding on that work. Okay. So back to the needs assessment. So what you need to do is assess whether or not it makes sense for your business to get certified right now, to have a certification in the future, or to have multiple certifications. And so you do that by, looking at your business model. The first thing I tell business owners to do is look at your customer segment. Like, what does your customer segmentation look like? Is it 75% corporations and 25% government agencies? Is it 100% federal agencies? Is it only 5%, B2B and everything else is B2C? So look at what your customer breakout is. Now, if you're doing the majority of your work with corporations, look at those corporations that you're doing work with, go to their websites, put in the search bar supplier diversity, and if there a link comes up and they have a supplier diversity program, you need to move forward with getting certified. Even if the opportunity didn't require for you to be certified to win it, which is great, they can still count your spend at the end of the year towards their goal. I can't tell you how many times I've been in the chair of running supplier diversity programs, and we didn't have a particular contract or project that had spend allocated towards it. We had an overall annual goal. And I love seeing those numbers come in at the end of the year. And I'm like, oh, look how much we did with minority, women owned small businesses. And these were on contracts that didn't even have any direct spend correlated with them. So it's a win-win because now I'm blowing my annual percentage, my goal out of the water. I may have had a goal of 25%, and here I've done 42. Like, that's amazing. So go ahead and get those certifications in place if you are currently doing business with corporations that have supplier diversity or MWBE programs. It is a win-win for both of you all. Okay. I cannot tell you how many times I get excited when I end up finding out that a business that we've been doing work with is certified, and I had no idea that they were. Okay. So that's a win-win for you. So that's what you need to do during that needs assessment. If you happen to be doing business with the federal government, or let's just say that you're a subcontractor and you were able to get on a project with a prime for, the airport, for some construction at the airport, and you're not DBE, you're not MBE, you're not WBE, this is the time for you to get that BE done. Because if you are a sub on a project and it's a federally funded project, that's going on your resume. That is now a part of your capacity, now a part of your capability. So you want to make sure that you're able to leverage that and maybe go after a contract on your own. In addition to that, there's oftentimes flow down that happens in these contracts, meaning if they win a contract with the airport's going to say, well, now you have a 15% DBE goal that I need you to meet, Mr. Prime. So now that prime contractor has to do a good faith effort and go out and find certified DBEs that can perform certain aspects of that project as subcontractors. If you're not certified, they can't count you towards that 15%. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to find somebody that is certified, because at the end of the day, they could get penalized for not meeting that flow down requirement. So it's always great if you happen to be a sub and you are a sub on a contract and your certification was not needed, go ahead and start that process, because I can guarantee you there's going to be an opportunity that comes up. Either you're subbing again on another opportunity, or you're prime on an opportunity and that certification is going to be needed. So that's what happens when you do a needs assessment. You're really looking at what you're currently doing and how certification could possibly impact your ability to scale and grow the business. All right. So let's get into the fourth thing. So the fourth way that you can identify the right certification is going to be to analyze your ROI. What is your return on investment? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, any certification that you get other than your federal certifications are going to have an application fee assessed. All right. Your application fees are going to be nominal. Most start around $250, and it's depending on how many designations you get, or it may be based on your revenues. So how large your company is. So from $250 and up is what you could possibly be looking at for application fees. Now, that sounds very nominal. And it is when you think about the fact that any contract that you get is going to be more than $250. So off of one contract, one PO, one invoice, you've already made your money back. All right. So when you look at that return on investment from a dollar standpoint, it makes complete sense. However, if you think about the time that goes into putting your application together, getting it submitted, if you're not familiar with the certification process, that could take you a few months. I've seen some people, it takes them years to get through it because they're busy running their business. They're trying to figure out the certification process. And so that's a lot of time taken away from you devoting to other aspects of your business to complete this process of certification. So really consider what you're going to invest in order to get this certification and whether or not you can get a return on that. And how soon after do you need to see that return? Now, for individuals that choose to use a consultant to help them with that, your investment, of course, increases financially. It decreases as far as the time spent actually doing the process, but it does increase because now you're paying a consultant, a subject matter expert to perform this process for you. So now looking at what that monetary expense is, you need to determine, okay, if I'm spending a couple of $1,000s to have someone help me do this, how am I going to recoup that, that money with this certification? So that's why it's always important to have a plan of leverage as you're moving through this process of certification. All right. So those are the 4 things that can definitely help you as you are considering certification. Okay. And I will tell you that if you do these 4 things, if you walk down these 4 paths, you will definitely figure out which certification is going to be right for you. And it could be multiple. I work with clients, they come in and they say, I just want or the MBE. That's all I need right now. I'm like, okay, but you are a Black woman. So why would you not get the WBE as well? Why don't we just get both? Right. Or they come in and they say, well, I just want to do the MBE and the WBE with the council. Okay, but are you planning to do any business with maybe the cities or the counties? And where are you doing business? Because in the DFW area, the majority of your cities and your counties, your municipalities, they accept certifications from the councils. But that's not always true across the board, in the nation. So, really helping you identify how you plan to leverage that certification is going to be key in determining which ones you get first. Okay. You can always start with one and move to another one. I work with people who they're like, well, I just want to do MBE now, but I think that I'm going to do federal work maybe in about 3 or 4 years. That's going to be my plan. Okay, well, let's get through year 1 with this MBE certification. You can learn how to put your bids together. You can learn the process of doing business with maybe some of the local agencies. And then we can begin the certification process for the DBE certification. Because now you've gotten your feet wet, you understand how to bid, you understand how to kind of work that network, and now you're ready because you've grown in capacity. Maybe you've been able to acquire additional resources and assets to help support your business, and you can move forward to a larger contract opportunity with the federal government. So those are all things to consider as you're trying to figure out, how you obtain the right certification. Now, the other things that I mentioned, again, look at what industry you're in, because your service or product may not be procured by the federal agency. It may not be procured by corporations. It may not be procured by the state. So look at what industry you're in and then start looking at your potential client, the people you want to do business with. Find out who the buyers are, pick up the phone and ask them, hey, do you guys buy this? Have you considered this as an alternative to this? Okay. To figure out whether or not there's an opportunity for you. Because if there isn't, then certification may not be what you need right now. It may not be what you need ever. I mean, that is honestly a reality to this world. It may not be, okay? And that's fine. But you need to do the due diligence to determine whether or not that is true before you just make that decision not to get certified. Okay. The other things to consider is how long your business has been operational. Some certification agencies require that you've been in business for at least 6 months, so that you have at least 6 months of financial statements to show them because you haven't filed tax returns yet. Other agencies say, hey, you can come and get certified as a startup, meaning you can incorporate your business yesterday and get certified today, apply for certification today. It really depends on the agency. So figuring out what their requirements for certification are going to be key as well to determine which certification you can access at what point. Okay. Let's see. Another thing to consider is your capacity. All right. If you don't have the capacity to do business with the federal government, then a federal certification may not be the right thing for you right now. Because once you step into those waters, you need to be able to perform. If you are not at the point to where you can actually leverage and use the 8A program through the SBA, going through the 8A certification is not something that you want to do right now. Furthermore, the 8A certification program is only good for 9 years. So if you're not ready to get in there and work that 9 years, you really are wasting your time and your energy. So figure out whether or not certification makes sense based on your current capacity, your current capabilities. Okay. So those are some of the tips that I wanted to drop for you today. If anything, I will tell you, If working with an agency, if working with a corporation is something you want to do, go ahead and get your certification. Just go ahead and start the process. Okay. But use those steps to determine which certification you start with first. All right. The other beautiful thing, this is my last tip. The other beautiful thing about certification and figuring out which one is once you go through that process, certifications are basically the same. There may be some slight nuances in information that is required, but for the most part, the questions on the application are going to be the same. The documents that you're going to submit are going to be the same. And the process of certification is going to be basically the same. Okay. There's going to be an initial review, a in-depth desk audit, a site visit, and then a final decision that is rendered. Okay. So the good thing is once you've gone through it, you now have all of the documents that you will need to submit for any certification, not counting those things that may be very specific to certain agencies. All right. So that's what I've got for y'all today. I know it was a lot. I'm going to encourage you to please, if you're listening to this and not watching this on YouTube, hop over to my YouTube because I will have show notes, which will have links to information. The slide that I shared today will also be on there for you. For those of you listening, you didn't see the slide, but I do have a slide that had the 4 things, to do in order to identify which certification, you might need to go after first. But definitely hop over and look at those resources. Again, if you have questions, drop them below. Let me know if this information was helpful. I am always here for assistance. If you have questions, you can always email me. You can always find me on social media at lengofocus. If you're on Instagram, Facebook, if you happen to find me on TikTok, it's at _lengofocus. But again, I would tell you, please reach out. Certification is not hard. It's just finding the right information to make the best and educated decisions for your business. So that's all I got for y'all today. Until next time, you guys, if anything that I said didn't resonate, let this resonate. Go get certified. All right. Peace. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. It's always a pleasure to bring salient information to help you make better decisions about your business, especially when it applies to DMWBE certification and how it can really help you leverage and scale your business. So please be sure to subscribe, like, and share this podcast on whatever platform you are listening. I appreciate you being here. And until next time, don't be a stranger. Connect with me on social media. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you think. Drop some comments below. And we'll be talking soon. Y'all be well.
Apply to certify.